Hey, so have you heard about the Watts family murders? It's seriously one of the most heartbreaking and twisted stories I've ever come across. Let me tell you what happened. So there's this guy, Chris Watts. He seemed to have the perfect life. He was married to Shanann, this super bubbly and outgoing woman who loved sharing their lives on social media. They had two adorable little girls, Bella and Celeste, and Shanann was pregnant with their third child, a boy they were going to name Nico. They lived in Frederick, Colorado, and from the outside, they looked like the ideal family. You know, like those families you see in commercials, all smiles and sunshine. But then, on August 13th, 2018, everything changed. Shanann's friend, Nicole, got really worried when Shanann didn't show up for a doctor's appointment and wasn't answering her phone. You see, Nicole knew Shanann well enough to know she would never miss a doctor's appointment, especially given how meticulous she was about her health and her pregnancy. So Nicole called Chris, who said he was at work, and then she contacted the police. When the cops arrived at their house, they found no sign of Shanann or the girls. Chris showed up and let them search the house, but there was nothing to indicate where they could have gone. As the investigation started, Chris was all over the news, acting like a distraught husband and father, begging for their safe return. But there was something off about him. The police noticed he was behaving strangely, and his stories didn't quite add up. Then, one of the neighbors had security footage that showed Chris backing his truck into the garage super early that morning, which seemed really suspicious. 2 days later, after failing a lie detector test, Chris confessed. But get this, his initial story was another lie. He said Shanann had strangled their daughters after he told her he wanted a separation, and that he then strangled her in a fit of rage. It was all BS. The real story was even more horrific. After some more digging, it came out that on the night of August 12th, 2018, Chris strangled Shanann in their bed. Then he took her body and his two daughters, who were still alive, to his work site. There he smothered Bella and Celeste and dumped their bodies into oil tanks, then buried Shanann in a shallow grave nearby. Can you believe that? For anyone, but especially for the women out there, it's impossible not to feel a gut-wrenching sadness for Shanann and her kids. I mean, she was this amazing woman, full of life and love, and those poor little girls, it's just unbearable to think about their final moments. It's the kind of tragedy that makes you want to hold your loved ones a little tighter. Imagine being Shanann, who was just trying to make her family happy and share that happiness with the world. And those little girls, Bella and Celeste, they trusted their dad completely. It's heart-wrenching. And you know what's even crazier? During the investigation, it came out that Chris was having an affair with a coworker named Nico Kessinger. This whole thing just adds another layer to the story. He was trying to start a new life with her, away from his family. It's like something out of a twisted soap opera, right? There were all these rumors and gossip flying around about how they met and how deep their relationship was. Apparently, Nicole claimed she had no idea Chris was still married and thought he was already separated. She said she wouldn't have gotten involved with him if she had known the truth. Can you imagine finding out the guy you're dating is not only married, but also capable of such a horrendous crime? Chris was also in deep financial trouble, which just adds to the whole mess. The Watts family had filed for bankruptcy a few years earlier and were still struggling. It seemed like Chris saw his family as a burden, financially and emotionally, and thought the only way out was to get rid of them. What a monster. The whole community was in shock. How could he do something so evil to his own family? Turns out, he was having an affair and was in serious financial trouble. He wanted to start fresh and thought this was the way to do it. In November 2018, Chris was sentenced to 5 life sentences without parole, plus 84 years for other charges. He's now rotting away in a maximum security prison. Good riddance, right? That guy is a real piece of work. The whole thing is just so tragic. It's a stark reminder of how deceptive appearances can be. This guy destroyed his family for his selfish desires. It's honestly one of the most disturbing stories I've ever heard. I still can't wrap my head around how someone could do that to their own wife and kids. Now, about the psychology and how the police cracked the case. Chris Watts is a classic example of a narcissistic personality. He wanted to portray the image of a perfect life while having complete control over his double life. His desire to eliminate what he saw as obstacles, his family, was driven by his need to start anew without the burden of his past responsibilities. Financial troubles and an extramarital affair were the immediate triggers, but deeper psychological issues related to control, narcissism, and lack of empathy played a huge role. The police did a phenomenal job catching him. Initially, they were baffled with no clear leads. But Chris made several key mistakes. First, his overly eager cooperation and inconsistent stories raised red flags. The cops were like, wait a minute, something's not right here. Then, there was the neighbor's security footage showing Chris's unusual activity early that morning. The police also noticed he wasn't acting like a worried husband and father. They expected a distraught, frantic man, but instead, they got this guy who seemed more concerned about how he was coming off on camera. Then, the big gotcha moment was the failed polygraph test. Chris was confident he could beat it, but he failed miserably. The polygrapher even told him, you failed that test, right? That was a major breakthrough. After that, they used strategic interrogation tactics, playing on his need to appear cooperative and in control, which led to his eventual confession. Throughout the interrogation, they also used psychological tactics. They told him they had evidence, even when they didn't have the full picture yet. They implied they knew more than they did, which pressured Chris into confessing. It's like they knew exactly how to push his buttons. The big lesson here is that appearances can be very deceiving. People who seem to have it all can harbor deep, dark secrets. It's also a reminder of how crucial it is to pay attention to inconsistencies and behavioral cues when investigating crimes. The meticulous work of law enforcement, their ability to spot these cues, and their persistence in seeking the truth were key in solving this tragic case. So next time someone's story seems a little too perfect, maybe keep one eye open, And this whole case is a reminder that sometimes the people who seem the most normal are hiding the darkest secrets. Chris Watts fooled everyone, his friends, his family, even his mistress. But in the end, his true nature came out. It's just so sad that Shanann and those beautiful little girls had to pay the price for his twisted desires. All right, that's enough of that dark stuff for now. But seriously, can you believe it? It's like something out of a horror movie. Just makes you want to appreciate the people around you even more, doesn't it?